The perfect life shattered. The anniversary that changed everything. The champagne was chilling in the silver bucket. The candles were lit across every surface of our penthouse dining room. I had spent the entire afternoon preparing Daniel's favorite meal, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables. 8 years. We had been married for 8 wonderful years, and tonight I wanted to celebrate every single moment. I adjusted the emerald necklace Daniel had given me on our first anniversary. It caught the candlelight beautifully, sending tiny sparkles across the cream-colored walls. Our penthouse in Manhattan's Upper East Side was everything I had ever dreamed of. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Modern furniture mixed with classic art pieces I had collected over the years. This was our sanctuary, our perfect life. "Maya, you look beautiful," I whispered to my reflection in the hallway mirror, smoothing down my black dress. At 32, I felt like I was living my best life. My art gallery in Soho was thriving. My marriage was solid. My rescue cat Whiskers was purring contentedly on the living room couch. Everything was exactly where it should be. I heard Daniel's key in the lock at exactly 7 o'clock. He was always punctual. That was one of the many things I loved about him. Reliable. Steady. Safe. "Happy anniversary, darling," I called out, moving toward the entrance with a bright smile. But Daniel didn't walk in alone. The woman who destroyed everything. Behind my husband stood a petite blonde woman, probably in her mid-20s. She wore a tight, white dress that showed off her figure, and she carried an expensive designer handbag I recognized from the latest fashion magazine. Her blue eyes swept across our home with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it hunger? Satisfaction? Calculation? "Maya, this is Claire," Daniel said, not meeting my eyes. His voice sounded strange. "Hello. We need to talk." My smile froze on my face. The champagne bottle I had been holding suddenly felt incredibly heavy. "Talk. Daniel, it's our anniversary dinner. Can't this wait?" "No," he said flatly. "It can't." Claire stepped forward, her hand moving protectively to her stomach. That's when I noticed the small bump beneath her dress. My heart stopped beating for what felt like an entire minute. "I'm pregnant," Claire announced, her voice sweet but her eyes cold as ice. 3 months along. The baby is Daniel's. The champagne bottle slipped from my fingers. It hit the marble floor with a crash that echoed through our suddenly silent home. Bubbles and glass spread across the floor like a liquid explosion of my shattered dreams. "What?" I whispered, looking at Daniel. "What is she talking about?" Daniel finally met my eyes. What I saw there broke something deep inside me. Guilt, yes, but also defiance. Resolution. He had made his decision before walking through that door. "It's true, Maya," he said quietly. "Claire and I have been seeing each other for about a year now. I didn't plan for this to happen, but it did. And now we have to deal with reality." "A year," I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been cheating on me for an entire year?" "I prefer to think of it as finding what was missing in our marriage," Daniel said, his tone taking on that condescending quality I had started to notice more and more lately. "You've been so focused on your gallery. We barely see each other anymore. Claire understands me in ways you never could." The unthinkable demand. I looked at this woman, this Claire, standing in my home, carrying my husband's child, and I felt like I was living in someone else's nightmare. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Not on our anniversary. Not after 8 years of what I thought was a solid marriage. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking. "Both of you. Get out of my house right now." "That's the thing, Maya," Daniel said, his expression hardening. "This isn't just your house. It's our house. And I think Claire should move into the guest room." I actually laughed. It was a horrible sound, more like a bark of disbelief. "You want your pregnant mistress to move in with us? Are you completely insane?" "It's the right thing to do," Daniel insisted, stepping closer to Claire in a protective gesture that made me want to scream. "She's carrying my child. I need to be there for her. For them both. And honestly, Maya, you have plenty of space here. The guest room is barely used. The right thing to do would have been not to cheat on your wife." I shouted. Whiskers jumped off the couch and ran toward the bedroom, scared by my raised voice. I never yelled. I was always the calm one, the reasonable one, the one who kept everything together. Claire placed her hand on Daniel's arm. "Maybe we should go," she said softly, playing the role of the peacemaker. But I saw the tiny smirk on her lips. She was enjoying this. "I don't want to upset Maya any more than necessary." No, Daniel said firmly. We need to settle this now. Maya, I've already spoken to a lawyer. New York is an equitable distribution state. If we divorce, you'll have to split everything. The penthouse, the savings, even your precious gallery since we used marital funds to expand it last year. Is that really what you want? My legs felt weak. I grabbed the edge of the dining table to steady myself. You planned this, I said slowly, realization dawning. You consulted a lawyer before even telling me. You've been preparing for this conversation. I'm being practical, Daniel said. I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone. Claire doesn't have anywhere else to go right now. Her lease ended last week. If you just let her stay in the guest room for a few months, we can figure everything out. You won't even notice she's here. The first signs of war. Won't even notice? I repeated incredulously. Your pregnant mistress living in my home, and I won't even notice? Our home, Daniel corrected. And yes, Maya, I think you can handle a little discomfort. After all, you always pride yourself on being so mature and understanding. So show some of that understanding now. I looked at my husband, this man I had loved for over a decade, had married 8 years ago, had built a life with, and I didn't recognize him anymore. When had he become so cruel, so entitled, so willing to discard everything we had built together? If you do this, I said slowly, my voice low and dangerous, if you bring her into this home, there's no coming back from it. You understand that, right? Daniel shrugged. Then I guess we'll see what happens. But Claire is moving in tomorrow. I've already arranged for the movers to bring her things. You can either accept it and we'll all be civilized adults, or you can make a scene and we'll end up in court anyway. Your choice. He turned to Claire. Come on, let me show you the guest room. You're going to love it. It has an ensuite bathroom and a walk-in closet. I stood there, surrounded by the ruins of my anniversary dinner, watching my husband give a tour of my home to his mistress. The candles were still burning. The salmon was getting cold in the kitchen. The champagne was spreading across the floor in a pool of wasted celebration. Whiskers peeked around the corner of the bedroom doorway, his green eyes wide and worried. I walked over and picked him up, burying my face in his soft orange fur. He was 10 years old. I had rescued him from a shelter when he was just a kitten, during my first year of marriage. Daniel had pretended to love him back then. Now I wondered if anything had ever been real. The cat becomes a target. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of furniture being moved. True to his word, Daniel had arranged for Claire's belongings to be delivered. I stayed in the bedroom, holding Whiskers, listening to the sounds of my life being dismantled. Around noon, I finally emerged. I needed coffee. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what to do next. Claire was in the kitchen, rearranging my cabinets. She had changed everything. My favorite mugs were moved to a higher shelf I could barely reach. Her organic teas now occupied the prime spot where I kept my coffee. She had even replaced my French press with some complicated espresso machine. Oh, Maya, she said brightly when she saw me. I hope you don't mind. I'm just making the kitchen a bit more functional. Daniel told me you're barely home anyway, so I figured I'd organize things in a way that makes sense. I bit back the angry words threatening to spill out. Instead, I reached for my coffee grounds, only to find them gone. Where's my coffee? Oh, I threw that out, Claire said casually. It was some cheap grocery store brand. I replaced it with organic, fair trade beans. Much better for you. Though obviously I can't have caffeine right now because of the baby. She touched her stomach again, that proprietary gesture that was becoming her signature move. Claiming my husband. Claiming my home. Now claiming my kitchen. That coffee was a special blend from a roaster in Seattle, I said through gritted teeth. It wasn't cheap. It was a gift. Claire shrugged. Well, it's gone now. You can order more, can't you? Daniel says you're always shopping online anyway. I made myself turn away before I said something I would regret. But then I saw Whiskers approaching the kitchen, curious about the newcomer. He was a friendly cat, always wanting to greet visitors. Ugh, a cat, Claire said, her face twisting with disgust. Daniel, you didn't tell me they had a cat. I'm allergic. This was a lie. I could tell immediately. She didn't sneeze. Her eyes didn't water. She just wanted Whiskers gone because he was mine. He lives here, I said firmly. Whiskers was here long before you. Well, he needs to stay out of the common areas, Claire declared. I can't be around pet dander. It's bad for the baby. You'll have to keep him in your bedroom from now on. This is his home, I protested. He's used to having free run of the apartment. Maya, be reasonable, Daniel said, walking into the kitchen. He was already on Claire's side, already defending her against me. It's just a cat. You can keep him in the bedroom. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I looked at my husband in disbelief. Whiskers is family. We adopted him together, remember? You said he was our practice baby. Daniel looked uncomfortable. That was a long time ago, Maya. Things change. We have a real baby to think about now. The poisoning plot. Over the next week, I watched Claire systematically take over my life. She rearranged the living room furniture. She changed the art on the walls, removing pieces from my gallery and replacing them with generic prints she claimed were more cheerful. She took over the master bathroom, pushing all my cosmetics into a small corner to make room for her extensive beauty routine. And she went after Whiskers with subtle cruelty. I started noticing that he was getting sick more often, vomiting, lethargic, not eating his food. At first, I thought it was stress from all the changes in the household. Cats are sensitive creatures. But then I came home early from the gallery one day and found Claire in the living room with a vase of fresh lilies on the coffee table. My blood ran cold. Where did those flowers come from? I demanded. Claire looked up from her magazine. Daniel sent them to me. Aren't they beautiful? He's so thoughtful. Those are lilies, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Lilies are extremely toxic to cats. Even the pollen can cause kidney failure. Oh, Claire said, not looking concerned at all. I didn't know. I'm sure it will be fine. It won't be fine, I said, already moving toward the flowers. If Whiskers gets near these, he could die. I grabbed the vase and carried it toward the guest room, Claire's room. But Claire stood up and blocked my path. Those are my flowers, she said, her sweet mask slipping to reveal something ugly underneath. Daniel gave them to me. You can't just take them. They're poisonous to my cat. Then keep your cat locked up like I asked, Claire snapped. I'm so tired of accommodating that animal. This is supposed to be my home too, but I have to tiptoe around because of some mangy cat. Whiskers is not mangy, I said, my voice shaking with rage. And you know exactly what you're doing. You put these flowers here on purpose. Prove it, Claire said, smirking. Or maybe your cat is just sick because he's old and you don't take care of him properly. That night, I found Whiskers collapsed by the water bowl. He had gotten into the lily pollen somehow. His breathing was labored. His eyes were glazed. I scooped him up and ran for the door. Where are you going? Daniel asked, looking up from his laptop. Emergency vet, I said, tears streaming down my face. Whiskers is dying. He got into lily pollen. Lily pollen? Daniel frowned. How did that happen? Ask your girlfriend, I spat. She put toxic flowers all over the living room. Maya, that's ridiculous. Claire didn't know lilies were toxic to cats. It was an accident. It wasn't an accident. I screamed. She's been trying to hurt him all week. She wants him gone. And you're too busy playing house with your mistress to notice that she's evil. Calm down, Daniel said in that condescending tone I had grown to hate. You're being hysterical. How much is this emergency vet visit going to cost? I stared at him, clutching my dying cat. What? The vet bill, Daniel said. How much? Because I think we need to start being more careful with money. We have a baby on the way. We can't be spending hundreds of dollars every time the cat gets a stomach ache. He's dying, I whispered. And you're worried about money? I'm being practical, Daniel said. Look, if the vet bill is going to be more than a few $100s, maybe we should consider just, putting him down. He's 10 years old. That's old for a cat. In that moment, I saw my husband clearly for the first time in years. He wasn't a good man having a midlife crisis. He wasn't a confused partner making mistakes. He was a selfish, cruel stranger who had been hiding behind a mask of decency for our entire marriage. Get out of my way, I said coldly. I walked past him, past Claire who was watching from the guest room doorway with barely concealed satisfaction, and out into the night. Whiskers was warm and limp in my arms. I could feel his heart beating irregularly against my chest. Hold on, baby, I whispered as I ran toward the parking garage. Mommy's going to save you. And then Mommy's going to destroy everyone who hurt you. Because in that moment, carrying my poisoned cat through the cold Manhattan night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to let Daniel and Claire push me out of my own life. I was going to fight back. And I was going to win. The silent revenge begins. The veterinarian's kindness. The emergency veterinary clinic was bright and cold. I sat in the waiting room with Whiskers wrapped in my coat, his breathing shallow and rapid. My hands were shaking. My mascara was running down my face in black streaks. I probably looked like a disaster, but I didn't care. All that mattered was saving my cat. Maya-chun, a tall man in scrubs, appeared in the doorway. He had kind brown eyes and a gentle smile. "I'm Dr. James Parker. Let me take a look at your boy." I followed him into the examination room, watching as he carefully took Whiskers from my arms and placed him on the metal table. His hands were steady and confident as he checked Whiskers' vital signs. "You said Lily poisoning?" Dr. Parker asked, his expression growing serious. "Yes," I said, my voice breaking. "There were lilies in my apartment. I told her they were toxic, but she wouldn't listen, and now he's dying, and it's all my fault for not protecting him better." "Hey," Dr. Parker interrupted gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "This is not your fault. Lily poisoning is serious, but we caught it early. I'm going to start him on 4 fluids and activated charcoal right away. He's going to need to stay here for at least 48 hours so we can monitor his kidney function. Whatever it costs," I said immediately. "I don't care. Just save him." Dr. Parker nodded. "I will do everything I can. Why don't you go get some coffee from the machine down the hall? This will take a few minutes to set up, and you look like you need a moment." I didn't want to leave Whiskers, but I also didn't want to fall apart in front of this kind stranger. I nodded and stepped out into the hallway. The coffee from the vending machine was terrible, but I drank it anyway, letting the bitter warmth ground me. When I returned, Dr. Parker had Whiskers hooked up to N4. My sweet orange cat looked so small and fragile on that big examination table. "He's stable for now," Dr. Parker said. "We'll know more in a few hours." "But Maya, I have to ask, you mentioned that someone put lilies in your apartment even after you told them they were toxic. Is everything okay at home?" I looked at this stranger who was saving my cat's life, and suddenly the whole story came pouring out. The affair, the pregnancy, Claire moving in, the systematic cruelty, Daniel's betrayal, everything. Dr. Parker listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry you're going through this," he finally said. "But I want you to know something. What happened to Whiskers tonight? That wasn't an accident. Lilies don't just appear in homes with cats. Someone put them there knowing what could happen. That's not just neglect. That's deliberate harm." His words confirmed what I had been thinking but hadn't wanted to believe. Claire had tried to kill my cat. "What do I do?" I whispered. "You document everything," Dr. Parker said firmly. "I'm going to write up a detailed report about Whiskers' poisoning. You keep that report. You take photos. You start building evidence. Because someone who would hurt an innocent animal? They're capable of a lot more than you think." The discovery in the office. I stayed at the clinic all night, dozing in an uncomfortable plastic chair while Whiskers slept under medical care. Dr. Parker, "Call me James," he insisted, checked on us regularly, bringing me better coffee from the staff break room and a blanket when he noticed me shivering. By morning, Whiskers was showing improvement. His kidney values were still concerning, but he was stable. James said I could visit him throughout the day, but he needed to stay for monitoring. I went home to shower and change, dreading what I would find. It was 6 in the morning. Hopefully Daniel and Claire would still be asleep. The apartment was quiet when I entered. I moved silently through the living room, which Claire had rearranged yet again, and into the master bedroom. I grabbed some clean clothes and was about to head to the bathroom when I noticed something odd. The door to Daniel's home office was slightly open. He always kept it locked. Always. He said it was because he had sensitive client information in there. I had respected his privacy for 8 years. But right now, I didn't feel very respectful. I pushed the door open slowly. The morning light filtered through the blinds, creating stripes across Daniel's expensive desk. His laptop was closed. His filing cabinets were locked. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. There was a folder on the corner of his desk. A plain manila folder, slightly open, with papers sticking out. It looked like it had been left out accidentally. Daniel was usually so careful about putting things away. I shouldn't look. I knew I shouldn't. But after everything that had happened, after Whiskers nearly dying, after being treated like an intruder in my own home, I didn't care anymore about respecting Daniel's privacy. I picked up the folder and opened it. What I saw made my blood run cold. The financial crimes. The first document was a bank statement, but not for any account I recognized. It was an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, and it had over $300,000 in it. $300,000 that I knew nothing about. I flipped through more papers. There were transfer records, invoices from Daniel's architecture firm that didn't match the company's official books, email printouts discussing creative accounting and redirecting funds, payments to shell companies, detailed plans for moving money where it couldn't be traced. Daniel was embezzling from his firm. My hands shook as I continued reading. But it got worse. Much worse. There were also bank records from our joint account, the one we used for household expenses and my gallery. Over the past year, Daniel had been making withdrawals I never noticed. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Small enough that they didn't trigger alerts, but over time they added up to over $60,000. He had been stealing from me. And then I found the document that made everything click into place. It was an email exchange between Daniel and Claire, dated from 14 months ago, before she got pregnant, before any of this started. Daniel, the plan is working. I've been moving money slowly so Maya won't notice. By the time she figures it out, we'll have enough to disappear. Claire, what about the wife? Think she'll fight the divorce? Daniel, Maya's too soft, too trusting. I'll tell her I had an affair, get her emotional and confused. Maybe even suggest we all live together. That will really mess with her head. While she's distracted, I'll drain what I can from the gallery account and the firm. Then we'll take off. Claire, and the baby story? Daniel, perfect cover. She'll be so focused on that. She won't notice the money disappearing. Plus it makes me look like the good guy, trying to do right by my child. Everyone will think she's the bitter ex-wife. Claire, you're brilliant. I can't wait to spend all that money in Bali. Daniel, just a few more months, babe. Then we're free. I sat down hard in Daniel's office chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. This wasn't about a midlife crisis. This wasn't about falling in love with someone else. This wasn't even about the baby. This was a calculated con. A theft. A crime. Claire wasn't even pregnant, or if she was, the baby was just a prop in their scheme. They had planned this whole thing. The affair. The moving in. The emotional manipulation. All of it was designed to distract me while they robbed me blind. And I had almost fallen for it. Building the case. I took photos of everything with my phone. Every document. Every email. Every bank statement. My hands were steadier now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by cold, calculated fury. I put the folder back exactly where I found it, making sure everything looked undisturbed. Then I went to the bathroom, showered, and dressed in one of my power suits, the kind I wore to important gallery openings and business meetings. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red from crying, but there was steel in them now. I wasn't the broken, betrayed wife anymore. I was a businesswoman who had just discovered a major fraud, and I knew exactly what to do. I called my best friend Rebecca. She was a corporate lawyer, one of the best in Manhattan. We had known each other since college. Maya? It's 6:30 in the morning. Is everything okay? No, I said calmly. Everything is very much not okay. But I need your help, and I need you to keep this completely confidential. I heard Rebecca sit up in bed. Talk to me. I told her everything. The affair, Claire moving in, Whiskers being poisoned, and finally, the documents I had just found proving Daniel and Claire were planning to defraud me and his company. Rebecca was silent for a long moment after I finished. Maya, she finally said, her voice serious. What you're describing is multiple felonies. Embezzlement, wire fraud, possibly conspiracy. If we handle this right, Daniel could go to prison. Good, I said coldly. But I need to be smart about this. They can't know I know. Not yet. Agreed, Rebecca said. Here's what we're going to do. First, don't touch any of those documents again. We've already got photos, and that's enough. Second, I'm going to contact a forensic accountant I work with. We need to build an airtight case. Third, you need to secure your own assets immediately. Can you get to your bank this morning? Yes, I said. Do it. Move your personal money into an account Daniel doesn't know about. Remove his access to the gallery account. Change all your passwords. We need to stop the bleeding right now. What about Claire? I asked. Leave her to me, Rebecca said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I'm going to do some digging on Miss Claire. I have a feeling she's not quite who she claims to be. Scammers usually have a history. The perfect performance. When I came out of the bedroom, Daniel was in the kitchen making breakfast. He looked surprised to see me dressed for work. You're going to the gallery? He asked. I thought you'd stay home today after Whiskers. Whiskers is stable, I said, pouring myself coffee. The vet is taking excellent care of him, and I have important meetings today. The gallery doesn't run itself. Daniel looked uncomfortable. Maya, about last night. I'm sorry I didn't react better. I was just worried about money and... It's fine, I said, interrupting him. I needed him to think I was giving up. You're right. We need to be practical. I've been thinking about what you said, and maybe you're right. Maybe I've been too focused on work. Too focused on the cat. Not focused enough on us. Daniel's eyes widened. This was clearly not the reaction he expected. Really? Really? I said, forcing a smile. I think I've been in denial. About the affair. About Claire. About the baby. But the truth is, you're still my husband. And if we're going to make this work, I need to try harder. This was the hardest performance of my life. Every word tasted like poison in my mouth. But I needed Daniel to lower his guard. I needed him and Claire to think they were winning. That's wonderful, Maya, Daniel said, relief flooding his face. I knew you'd come around. You're so reasonable. So mature. This is why I married you. Right. That's why you married me. Not because you loved me, but because I was reasonable. Because I was easy to manipulate. I actually wanted to talk to you about something. I continued. I've been thinking about your business situation. You mentioned wanting to start your own firm. What if I invested some money from the gallery? Help you get started? Daniel's face lit up like Christmas morning. Seriously? Maya, that would be incredible. I've been looking at office spaces, but I didn't want to ask you for money with everything going on. I bet you didn't want to ask. You were just going to steal it. How much would you need? I asked innocently. Well, I've been thinking maybe $100,000 to start. Just for the first year's expenses, office setup, that kind of thing. $100,000. He wanted me to just hand over $100,000. Let me talk to my accountant, I said. See what makes sense. Maybe we can structure it as a business investment. You're amazing, Daniel said, coming over to hug me. I forced myself not to flinch. I love you so much, Maya. I know I haven't shown it lately, but I do. No, you don't, I thought. But I smiled and hugged him back. You don't love me. You never did. But that's okay. Because I don't need your love anymore. I just need you to think you're winning long enough for me to destroy you. The unexpected ally arrives. Later that day, I was at the gallery pretending to work when I got a text from Rebecca. Found something on Claire. Call me ASAP. I stepped into my private office and dialed her number. You're not going to believe this, Rebecca said. Claire Morgan, if that's even her real name, has a record. Nothing major, but interesting. 3 years ago, she was involved in a real estate scam in Florida. She and her boyfriend at the time convinced elderly people to invest in properties that didn't exist. They got away with about $200,000 before the boyfriend took the fall and went to prison. Claire disappeared before they could charge her. So she's a professional con artist, I said. Looks like it. And there's more. I found social media posts from 2 years ago where she was engaged to a different guy. Rich investment banker. The engagement mysteriously ended, and he filed for bankruptcy 6 months later. I'm still digging, but there's a pattern here. Claire targets successful men, bleeds them dry, and moves on. Which means Daniel is just another mark, I said slowly. She's not in love with him. She's robbing him blind. Exactly. And you know what the best part is? I don't think Daniel even realizes it. He thinks he's playing you, but Claire is playing him. Despite everything, I almost laughed. Daniel, in his arrogance, thought he was the mastermind. But he had partnered with someone even more ruthless than him. There's one more thing, Rebecca said. I did some checking on the pregnancy. I can't confirm anything without medical records, but I talked to a private investigator friend who did some surveillance. He saw Claire at a bar last week. She was drinking. Heavily. Not something a pregnant woman usually does. So the pregnancy might be fake too, I said. It's possible. We'll find out eventually. But Maya, here's what I'm thinking. We have 2 options. Option 1. We go to the police right now with what we have. Daniel gets arrested for embezzlement, and we deal with Claire separately. What's option 2? Option 2 is more interesting, Rebecca said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. We let them think they're winning. We feed them just enough rope to hang themselves. We document everything. And then, when they've committed enough crimes that there's no way out, we spring the trap. Option 2 could be risky, I said. Yes, Rebecca agreed. But it would also be more satisfying. And more importantly, it would ensure they both go down. Right now, we have solid evidence on Daniel, but less on Claire. If we wait and watch, we can catch them both red-handed. I thought about it. About Daniel pretending to love me while planning to rob me. About Claire poisoning my cat and taking over my home. About all the lies and manipulation and cruelty. How long would we need to wait? I asked. A few weeks. Maybe a month. Just long enough to catch them in the act of moving the money or implementing whatever their endgame is. Okay, I said. We do option 2. But Rebecca, I need you to help me with something else. Name it. I need to make sure my grandmother doesn't find out about any of this, I said. Not yet. My grandmother, Elizabeth Chun, was 78 years old and lived in London. She was the family matriarch, a self-made millionaire who had built a real estate empire from nothing. She was also fiercely protective of me and had never really liked Daniel. She had even called me on our wedding day to ask if I was sure I wanted to marry him. I should have listened. Why keep it from her? Rebecca asked. Because my grandmother is coming to visit next month, I said slowly, an idea forming. And I think she might be exactly what we need to make this plan work. The grandmother's arrival. 3 weeks later, I picked up my grandmother from JFK Airport. She looked exactly as I remembered, elegant in a cream Chanel suit, her silver hair perfectly styled, her eyes sharp and assessing behind her designer glasses. Maya, darling, she said, hugging me tightly. You look thin. Have you been eating? And what's this I hear about Daniel having a house guest? I had told her about Claire over the phone, though I had downplayed the situation significantly. I said Daniel was helping out a friend who had fallen on hard times. Nothing about the affair or the pregnancy or the embezzlement. It's complicated, grandmother, I said as we drove toward Manhattan. But I'll explain everything when we get home. Does this complicated situation have anything to do with why you asked me to bring my lawyer? Grandmother asked shrewdly. I smiled despite myself. My grandmother didn't miss anything. Maybe, I admitted. When we arrived at the penthouse, Daniel and Claire were both there. I had warned them grandmother was coming, and they had made an effort to clean up. Claire was wearing a modest dress and had toned down her makeup. Daniel was in a nice suit, his hair carefully styled. They thought they could fool her. They had no idea. Mrs. Chun, Daniel said warmly, moving forward to hug my grandmother. It's so wonderful to see you again. Grandmother allowed the hug, but didn't return it. Her eyes moved past Daniel to Claire, who was standing nervously by the sofa. And who is this? Grandmother asked coolly. This is Claire, Daniel said. I mentioned her on the phone. She's been staying in our guest room while she looks for a new apartment. How charitable of you, Grandmother said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. She walked past them both and sat in what used to be my favorite chair, but was now in a different corner because Claire had rearranged everything. I sat next to her. Daniel and Claire remained standing, suddenly looking like children called before the principal. Maya, Grandmother said, would you mind making me some tea? And then I think we need to have a family conversation. I went to the kitchen, but I left the door open so I could hear. So, Claire, Grandmother said, how exactly do you know my grandson-in-law? We work together, Claire said quickly. I'm in architecture too. Really? Grandmother's voice was full of polite disbelief. Which firm? I'm freelance, Claire said. How convenient, Grandmother said. And you're pregnant, I understand? There was a long pause. I peeked around the corner to see Claire's face go pale. How did you? Claire started. Oh, Maya didn't tell me, Grandmother said smoothly. I can simply tell. I've raised 3 children and have 7 grandchildren. I know what a pregnant woman looks like. Though I must say, you're either very early in your pregnancy or very good at hiding it. What are you, about 3 months? Yes, Claire said weakly. And the father? Grandmother asked bluntly. Daniel cleared his throat. Grandmother, this is an awkward conversation. Is it yours, Daniel? Grandmother asked, turning her laser focus on him. Daniel's face flushed. Yes, Claire and I. We made a mistake, and now we're trying to do the right thing. The right thing, Grandmother repeated. By having your mistress move into your wife's home. Yes, that certainly sounds like the right thing. The room fell silent. Maya told you, Daniel said accusingly. Maya didn't need to tell me anything, Grandmother said. I have eyes. I have experience. And I have lawyers who do very thorough background checks. Did you think I wouldn't investigate when I heard a strange woman was living with my granddaughter? Claire looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Daniel's confidence was rapidly crumbling. Now, Grandmother continued, accepting the tea I brought her. Let's talk about why I'm really here. Maya, darling, I've made a decision about my estate. My heart skipped a beat. We hadn't planned this. What was grandmother doing? As you know, grandmother continued, looking at me. I've been considering how to divide my properties and investments among my family. I've decided that you, Maya, will inherit the bulk of my estate. Approximately $50 million, including the properties in London, Hong Kong, and New York. The teacup in Claire's hand rattled against the saucer. Daniel's mouth fell open. 50 million, he repeated. Yes, grandmother said calmly. Maya has always been my favorite grandchild, though don't tell the others. She's smart, hardworking, and kind. Unlike some people, she doesn't need money to define her worth. This last comment was clearly directed at Daniel and Claire. Of course, grandmother continued. This inheritance comes with certain conditions. Maya must be in a stable marriage with someone who truly values her. Someone who sees her as a partner, not a bank account.